Welcome to the A.L.T. Journey podcast, an unedited, honest peer dialogue to lead the future. Today's conversation is with Chris Harding, and we will go deeper into our last episode of my interview called From Flow to Foresight. I tend to explore with Chris, but you never know how honest, unscripted conversation goes. But we tend to explore taking risk, learner safety, honest peers, and purpose-driven growth, how it all comes together. Chris is a true game changer with a relentless curiosity to see beneath the surface and reimagine what is possible. Chris invites a bold vision of the future where everyone can be seen for the unique good they bring. My name is Arjan Visser. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, good to be here again.
It is really a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And I was already struggling with the introduction. But it is not just an average topic, from flow to foresight. And as we were talking in our previous conversation, our pre-talk, about there are more people out there who recognize that they are dissatisfied with the status quo.
Yeah.
And it is worth to acknowledge that and step up, step out, and find clarity about what will satisfy you, what will give fulfillment of who you are becoming. So my first question actually to you is, what resonated most in the podcast of last week?
There were a couple of things. I was particularly drawn to the idea of these three circles of belonging, as I understand, that's how I phrase it. The idea that there is a, household of belonging, where perhaps we're most known and loved, and regardless of the tough times. Then the peer learning, the challenge that you've put out there is, who are your peers? Anybody can download information. What we're talking about here is not about acquiring more information or more skills, but about becoming, the most authentic me that I'm here to be. And that requires this, peer circle. I think I've really come to see the truth of that over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. And then this other circle, like the circle of purpose and impact of, so who am I here to be and where am I here to be the best version of me, who I'm, the impact I'm here to have. I was spent quite a bit of time reflecting on that. And the reason, one of the reasons I spent time reflecting on that is because it seemed to chime with, most people who have a church wedding have the reading 1 Corinthians 13, right, which talks about love, right? And there's this idea that there's faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And I couldn't help but see how that chimes with the three circles, right? There's the household circle, which is the circle of love that renews us, and it's the safest place on earth, hopefully, for most people. And then there's the circle of hope, which is that's about the futurizing thing. Not futurizing in the sense of predicting in order to take advantage of and to, exploit it, but seeing the possibility of the future, seeking out the possibility of the future that maybe isn't visible from here, that maybe others are not even looking for and don't even see. And that's where I get most value from my peer circle. The cultivating hope in what's possible, right? And then faith, I've come to discover, is not just about believing something. if you look at the original meaning of the word faith, it's about acting upon the hope. It's when hope becomes substantial. You're acting upon it. And that feels like that's the outer circle life. So what am I going to do with this in the world to make the world as it could be? And those two are symbiotic, aren't they? Like, you kind of lean into the what's possible at the same time as experimenting with, well, how is it possible? You've got to play with that. And it's like a dynamic unfolding rather than just the old school way of, well, you just download the information, you just get this qualification, you just add Prince 2, or you add something to your list of qualifications, and you add it to your CV, and that's who you are. I think life's much more interesting than that.
Well, you started with referring to the three circles as circles of belonging.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because personally, I've never connected the word belonging to the three circles.
Okay.
And immediately when you mentioned that, I had this thought that we shared a couple of months ago. What if belonging, a state of belonging, that safety, that security that we all want, comes from the inside out and is not based on comparison with our outside world. So it's not based on, do I fit both ways? But it becomes like, who am I? Who am I becoming? So then taking the three circles, then your identity and who you are becoming is the center of the three circles where they all overlap.
Yeah. Yes. And look, I've for a long time been playing with this idea that the default mode of being, and certainly in our Western world, is do this to have this, and then you will be. Right.
Yeah.
And the be is very much about what I've acquired that defines my status, which is very tricky in a shifting landscape, right? It's, for probably the first 35 years of your life, it looks like a ladder to climb because there's always somewhere else to get to. And then you get to a stage where you kind of go, there's got to be more than this. Because, whether you even look at it in economics terms, the incremental utility, if you like, of that next step becomes less and less meaningful. So that's why I love my peer community, because my peer community helps me to not ask the how do I question, not how do I get to the next level, but helps me ask the what if questions. What if I'm here for more than this? What if it doesn't have to be this way? Because the status quo inevitably decays, right? Well, the status decays into quo, if that's not really screwing up the
word.
Latin, but it can only take you so far. And I'm, as we're chatting today, I'm really hoping that there's people listening to this who are feeling totally dissatisfied. And I just want to say to them, that's a good thing. Because it means there's something going on within you that knows that life is about more than this.
Yeah, I like that. So when you talk about those circles of belonging and the dimension of who I am becoming in the middle, then if you feel dissatisfied, that could be because your landscape is too small. Your three circles and you, it's not up to speed, it's not up to date for the next chapter that you sense you are entering. So one of the steps is it needs to work together. And it's not based on what you do, it's based on who you become. It's a state of being. So it's that invitation, that dissatisfaction is the invitation for growth, for more. for fulfillment. Because that state of flow that we love to talk about, and I always say that's not going with the flow. That's the opposite. The state of flow is that you are happy swimming upstream. You are in a place of well-being. You are learning through making mistakes, experimenting, and you just love it. That is a first step to find after leaving the status quo. And finding that place is connected to being with the right peers. Because it is about your language, your inner dialogue, your external dialogue, your self-talk, your thinking, the words you choose.
Yeah.
You need your peers to find words that are generative, that create that future that you are stepping into, that you're stretching out to.
Yeah. Listen, for a long time, I was working with business owners. And one of my heroes was a guy called Michael Gerber. And I remember listening to him talking about, he would go and see business owners and he would ask them, so what's your vision? And they would say, well, I know what my vision is. He says, so tell me. And they would go, I don't need to tell you. I know what it is. And he would say to them, if you can't articulate it, you don't really have it. You don't really know it. If you can't express it, you don't really know it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know it, then you're just going to become the victim of going with somebody else's flow, going with the circumstances, being reactive rather than creative. And that was another thing I was drawing out of your podcast is there's like this shift from an environment of control to an environment of creativity. And when I think of creativity and growth, I think of dynamic things like the infinity loop or the spiral. The pictures that come to mind are very dynamic. Whereas I think of the status quo, I think of we're trying to control things. And that feels more like boxes, right? Stacked together. And very often in a very incoherent, disjointed way, we're just hoping that if I stack enough boxes, it becomes big enough so that it's sustainable. But the sustainability around creativity is more about momentum. It's more about life. It's about possibility. It's about, I don't know. There's a whole different energy to it.
Love it. I
But it's
love
a
it.
big shift. It's a big shift because it means, in the old world, you might have thought of your peers as the people who cheer you on, right? And celebrate your wins. But if you're really looking for more, we're talking about the kind of peers who call out the best in you, people who challenge you, people who, listen to your fumbling of trying to find language for what you're trying to discover and helping you sharpen that. It's kind of moving from a world where success is externally defined by definition. Do this to get that, and then I will be, I'll get the house, I'll get the car, I'll get the partner, I'll get the holidays, I'll get the promotions. They're all external. And it's all about performance. Whereas what we're talking about from the inside out is that it's about formation. It's about becoming something. It's about, and then allowing that something to radiate, to express, to make a difference in all of those circles. And that's why it's not it's not a fixed answer to a question that you can just download because someone else has already done it. You can try that, but it'll only take you so far. We're talking about the what if question and then exploring the landscape.
That's good. That's so good. When you were talking, like, I just saw those business reports. You know, all graphics are linear. Some have a curve, but then they go up, or they only go down.
Yeah.
So in a way, we tend to talk to ourselves like, well, they're not linear; they're exponential. Well, they still go from A to Z.
Yeah.
And the example you gave about life, it's like a wave. It goes up and down. It's like a spiral.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it just goes away. It keeps circling around the core. There is the infinity loop or the lemniscate, where it's an ongoing iterative flow process, however you want to call it. But life is so dynamic. Life is it's with cycles, but
Yeah.
the cycles are rhythms, and it's not linear. Like how we report business, process, productivity, output. It's so the opposite. So defining ourselves requires a different definition of success. And
Well,
and you mentioned that success is defined from the outside. Well, value is defined from the outside as well because there is someone receiving it.
yeah.
But the outside doesn't define you. It defines the success of your output. What defines you needs to come from the inside.
Yes, but also in that dynamic reality, although value is appreciated from the outside, it's more relational than acquisitional, right? So, and that is the mystery of the quantum reality, though, isn't it? Is that imagine the day someone discovered that it is both a particle and a wave. I mean, our minds still struggle to understand that. So yes, you can measure it just as a thing, a very static thing. You can measure that, but it's not the whole picture. The whole picture is that there's much more going on here than we have realized. And so even just now when you were talking about the people who are dissatisfied with the status quo, I think it's both discovering that there's a much larger landscape out there, but I think it's also discovering that there might be more dimensions to me than I realized.
Yeah, and in that line of thought, a landscape is actually doesn't have enough dimensions. Maybe that a constellation of a systemic perspective, or how everything connects to everything in their unique way, like how we look to the stars. We could look to the individual stars, we can look to the constellations of stars.
Yeah.
And 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 although for us it's a flat picture on the sky of dots, there's so many depth layers in it. They're even different ages. Maybe some of the light we see is no longer there because it travels from so far. So the
Yeah.
depth of identity we could see in the stars, the depth of purpose we could see in stars,
Yeah.
because it is like our voice. Like, I think it was Einstein, or I know it was Einstein, but I think what he said was that the galaxy is ever expanding and it's audio driven. So the words that we use will echo forever till they manifest.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to verbalize that, like the example you gave about the vision. Can you articulate your vision? Your vision doesn't have to be perfect,
No.
doesn't have to be extreme, but can you articulate the hope of the vision? Because the hope articulated best encourages people, activates people, makes other people join and resonate with you. It's like the particles become waves.
Yeah. And look, that you can settle for a vision that's just about what you want to acquire. to surround yourself with. Or you could articulate a vision, in keeping with the Jim Rohn quote that says, if you want to have more, you need to become more. You can articulate the vision in a way that says, who am I here to become? And what difference am I going to make? Because that constellation thing is very interesting, right? Not least because even when you said the light from a star that no longer exists, the first person I thought of was Albert Einstein. He's no longer alive, but his light still shines, right? He still challenges us. And I was doing a bit of research into how stars are formed. It's fascinating because you have this swirling cloud of colorful gases called a nebula that begins to clump together under its own gravity. And if it gets hot enough, if there's enough substance, it forms a star. And it's quite a brutal process in a way. But once it has become a star, it then gives light and energy to the universe, which I think is for me, I think it's a beautiful metaphor in many ways, not least because if that's what's going on in the cosmos, why would we imagine that our life here on Earth is that we're just a clump of matter with no more meaning and potential than surviving for 100 years and accumulating stuff? What if we're here to become relationally someone who shines a light, makes a difference, means something to other people in all three of those circles? And not just, my home, and not just where I currently, what I might think of as my current peers might just be my work environment, my boss, my reportees. And all I'm doing is a function within that thing. But what if the real me is here to be more than that? And that would be my challenge to business owners. What if your company, what if your company is not just here to make money, and sustainability isn't just about continued profitability, but what if, well, here's the question that I like to ask, which is, what is work really for in the grand adventure of life? I think it was actually Michael Gerber who said every business should be a school, a place of learning that helps me become more than I already am. And what that looks like on the ground is, well, I prove myself and I get a promotion. But hopefully what's really going on is much more interesting than that I'm becoming more. Now, what if the company could take that idea to its ultimate goal and say, yeah, but so what could we become? What would us becoming more mean? And I'm not just talking about, ticking boxes of corporate social responsibility. I'm talking about making a difference in the world. What would that look like? Like companies like Cadbury did hundreds of years ago, where they actually built a village for their workers. Companies like Mondragon, the largest cooperative in the world, I think, that turns over 9 billion, but makes a massive difference to its community. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, just go back to the example, because you give too much. You every sentence you create a new podcast series.
Apologies.
Yeah. the process how a star is born.
Yeah.
There is so, and you referred already to that you could take that process to your identity.
Totally.
Because the colorful gases, they are all your colorful thoughts you have.
Yeah, very pretty.
Very pretty. They sound amazing. They look amazing. But the moment something connects to it, and there is heat involved, call it your heart, your passion, what you start connect emotionally to, that builds your faith, because you want to see it work. And then the faith that becomes substance. So action is followed out of that let's call it gravity as well.
Yeah.
Your colorful ideas, they become substance, they get gravity, and your action starts to focus on it, and it becomes your purest intention, and everything starts to work there. That's how you unfold, because even with the star, it didn't happen just once, it happened over time. And when it stops happening, it decays. So your identity is like that as well. You have an identity, but there is also a fuller identity. There is a fulfillment of identity. And it's all that process of unfolding from your ideas to substance to manifestation, all to be light and shine your light for others to find their path. As other people, their light, help you and help you to find your unique path of unfolding. And I think that's a great metaphor from the stars in its constellation with other stars, that your identity, the more of you, the stronger the constellation, which means the more of you, the bigger the gift for others.
Yeah, and it's why I love Einstein so much, right? Because he wasn't someone who climbed a ladder. I mean, he spent years in the patent office doing, mundane work, seemingly, but his real work was thought experiments about what's really going on here, what's really possible here. Just different. He asked different questions, and what he discovered has changed everything. Without Albert Einstein, we wouldn't have had the computer chip.
Yeah.
So it really did manifest not just as theories, but as substance, practical things, because he discovered things that were true that nobody knew was true, but has always been true.
So to take Einstein's example, he was dissatisfied with the status quo.
Yeah.
But he used that energy to do thought experiments, what is possible. That didn't place him under a ceiling of external expectation, although he had to deal with it. The story of his life was that everyone wanted to own him. But these thought experiments got him in that state that we now talk about him as he was one of the biggest geniuses ever.
Yeah.
But what he did was not be under the dissatisfaction, but find that actually there are triggers. And he started to do these thought experiments that got him into becoming a star. And that is the same invitation for all of us. It's not to become Einstein, but we are all brilliant minds. We are all geniuses. When we fully take a stand in who we are created to be and unfold that. And we need that right environment of people around us, from the household, from our peers, and also those to receive our brilliance, our solutions, our creativity. But we have to take the invitation. If we ignore the invitation and try to just be complainers, we will become cynical, and we will find a detour to compensate the lack of satisfaction. But it doesn't make us whole. A new car, a new boat, a bigger house, all things, nothing wrong with. No way. I'm not saying they're wrong, but if we use things to rationalize and ignore the invitation to step up, then we're not helping ourselves, and we're definitely not helping our peers, those who are waiting for us to be our fullest version of ourselves and contribute with brilliant solutions. We just rob the world, starting with ourselves, from a breakthrough.
Yeah, and look, I was trying to think, okay, so how would I help someone explore at least that there's a possibility that they are made for more than this? And I would say start with contemplation. Just take some time. Grab a piece of paper, journal, or whatever. Do some contemplative thinking to explore what's really going on, to ask what if questions rather than how do I questions. Because I know from my own experience, I know it's true that the world I grew up in and was formed by has this when then promise of, well, when you get this, when you add this to that, then it'll be complete. Then you will have arrived. Then you will be, then you'll be happy. And so if we're not careful, we spend our time looking for the one thing that's going to be the thing that makes the whole thing click. And even though I know that, for years, I was still hoping I would find that. And it took me quite a while to really recognize that and stop doing that and start to realize that the thing I'm really looking for doesn't already exist, because the thing I'm really looking for is the fullest version of me. And that takes a different kind of thinking, a more contemplative thinking. It takes different questions. And if you can't find a peer community, just find one or two people. Start with contemplative thinking. Ask yourself some different questions. Find one or two people, and just trust that the future you isn't just the best reaction to what's coming, but it's actually discovering that who's actually going to bring the best future.
Yeah, I love it, Chris. And I will use this as a bridge to end this podcast, because you've just taken it away from climbing the ladder and being off the charge that we always use business. It's not a linear process. It's not that external definition of success. It's about you becoming you as the starting point, and the fulfillment is maybe even the end point. So, Chris, I want to thank you for this great conversation. And I really trust that all those people who tuned in and stayed with us to the end, that you are challenged. There must be something that resonated with you, that sparked something that is meaningful for your own journey. And well, the first thing is actually to act on that. Make a note of it, journal about it. But I also love to read your thoughts in the comments below and interact about it. Next week, we will continue with the fifth episode of the interview called A.L.T Leadership and Authentic Change. But if you can't wait and you're ready to explore more about who you are becoming and the future, we invite you to do it with us. We invite you to join the A.L.T Forum. This is an exclusive peer dialogue for visionary leaders to pioneer and ponder the A.L.T question, the question that shapes our leadership for the future together. Of course, you can experience it first and decide later. Just use the link alt.businessrevivalist.com and take the invitation and join as a guest. See you there. See you next week in the podcast, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.